If I wanted to, I would get an Om symbol tattooed on my fucking nutsack, and no one would stop me.
That's Ryan Orrico, and this is the Yoga Life Podcast. Hello there. Wow, that's loud. In my ears anyway. I hope it's okay in your ears. I'm Kevin, as always, and hope you're keeping well. A little bit of housekeeping before I get started. I got good, exciting news. My retreat is sold out already. So the tickets went on sale on Friday, and all the early birds have been taken within less than a week, which is great. Very happy about that. If you'd like to still come to the retreat, you can put your name down to be on the waiting list. And sometimes with retreats, a couple of people may drop out, may not be able to go, and then you'll be the first to be notified. If a space is available, your name will be on the top of the list. Other bit of housekeeping is I have a workshop happening in May, which is a bit far away, I know. But if it's before May 2019, go onto my site, Kevin Boy Yoga, and find my events. It'll be under there. It's handstand workshop, heels overhead. Last bit of housekeeping is this Sunday, April 7th, I'm doing a live Q&A, a live podcast with Adam Husler. Tickets are available. It's free. All you've got to do is RSVP. There's a couple of spots left. And come along, ask your questions, and be part of the podcast, which is exciting. Right, let's get into this guest. Well, not get into him, that sounds a bit strange. Let's speak about this guest, Ryan Orrico. Ryan is someone that I actually didn't like. This is a bit of a strange one. I was familiar with Ryan's work on Instagram and didn't like it. I thought, I don't like this guy's style, what he's saying, the way he's saying it. I really want to speak to him, which sounds a bit strange, but I think it's important to understand that I spend a lot of my time talking to people that love yoga, that portray yoga in a certain way. And I wanted to speak to someone who would juxtapose that position and give an interesting slant. And I actually think it's more important to have more honest conversations. So a lot of people are kind of afraid to say what they really feel, and they want to put out a narrative that suits and that fits in with their social media account, this image that they've painted of themselves. And I understand that, because people can give you criticism and it can be quite faceless. So you don't want to make yourself too vulnerable or say something that's going to upset someone or a group of people in this kind of outrage culture we're living now. But refreshingly, Ryan isn't like this. Ryan talks about instances he's had where he's caused some upset, some massive backlash. There is some bad language in this podcast, but I think it's suitable for the content and the nature of the conversation. So with Ryan, to give you a quick bit of background, he was a yoga teacher before, and now he did very well. He has a podcast that is called Unusually Focused, and it talks about how to make money as a yoga teacher, essentially, which is an important thing that a lot of people don't want to speak about. How do you actually make a living? And now he spends a lot of his time coaching, mentoring people to be better business people, yoga teachers to be better business people. So I challenge him on quite a few things, and he plays ball, and I really like that, and I appreciate that. So it makes for a great conversation. The one thing I will say before I put Ryan on is I think this is the last remote call I'm going to do, for a few reasons. This one came out well because I did some editing, some tidying up. I changed the voice levels, but it's so much better in person for three reasons, really. The number one being the chemistry. I like to meet people. I mean, I spend so much time on my own already. I've talked about this before. And I actually like to sit across from someone, look them in the eyes and have a good conversation. And as a listener, because I listen to other podcasts, I don't really want to listen to a phone conversation on Skype. I want to listen to two people chatting to each other and for it to be as natural as possible. That's the first reason, the chemistry. The second is the sound quality, because ultimately not everyone owns a USB mic like I do, and therefore for you, the listener, if you're listening to someone like I'm speaking to you now, is like I'm almost in your ear, I'm right next to you, which sounds a bit strange, but whereas when you're on a Skype call, if you don't have a good mic, it sounds like you're listening to someone speak for an hour at the end of a corridor. It's not ideal. The third and final reason would be that it's kind of hard to arrange these Skype calls as well. I waste a lot of time or spend a lot of time in editing, and people miss calls, and I've had so many people let me down, to be honest, that my time is too precious, and I say there's going to be a guest on 1 week and then suddenly the guest can't be on. So it's I'm going to stick with it in person. So this is a special episode because it's the last one that's going to be on Skype. Like I said, this one went well, but yes, let's keep improving this, and I want to create a podcast that I will listen to. Yeah, so there you go. All right. So if you find value from this podcast, you can support it directly. You can go to kevinboyleyoga.ie /support the Yoga Life podcast. This is, I don't know if you're aware, but BBC are now putting their podcast behind a paywall. So you have to pay a subscription to sign up. And there's also another platform that Russell Brand and a few other more high profile podcasters are going to called Luminary, I think, where it's unlike if you want to listen to their podcast, you have to pay for it. Now, I'm not saying that I deserve money, but if you enjoy the podcast, this is something that I want to keep doing, and I want to make sure that it's actually adding value. And the way I see that, and I feel that from people, is if you choose to support it, that would be great. If you would like to grab yourself a couple of bargains, then let me tell you about our two sponsors for today. First one is Apparel. have just released their spring collection, where you can get yourself some tees, some shorts, and some eco-friendly gear. I'm really conscious of how much of my waste, my carbon footprint. I have a Keep cup, which I've had for ages now, and I try to always use my cardboard box when I go in to buy my groceries instead of using plastic bags. And that should be the same for your clothes. I mean, if I go into certain other brands and I see, a t-shirt, 10 quid, sweet, I'll buy that. It doesn't last. So buy quality, not quantity. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you go to om.com /the Yoga Life podcast, then you can go on their site, pick out some gear that you need. It's men's clothing for men who like to move and do yoga, and put in the promo code Kevin for 15% discount off. It's not included on clearance items, but you can get your spring collection for 15%, man. I wear the gear myself, so you can either look on their site or look at my pictures on the Instagram and see, if I can look good wearing it, good-ish, anyone can. All right. So the next final sponsor is Yogaroo 108 yoga sequencing cards. These guys, it's Ruth. Ruth is a self-employed entrepreneur like myself in a little studio, grafting away, making these beautiful sequencing cards that allow you to build a good, solid home practice. And then they have all the information you need on there, all the alignment cues, the level guides, the anatomy coding, and all the translations from Sanskrit to English. So you can go on to yogaroo.ie, go in and see their sequencing cards. They're in a lovely turquoise box. Put in the promo code Kevin at checkout and you get 10% discount. There you go. So if you enjoy this podcast at any stage, you can share it on your social media. Our Instagram stories is usually a good one. Best way to listen, I feel, is on Spotify, but the statistics show me that more than half people listen to an Apple podcast. So, each to their own. But either way, if you enjoy it, please share it with a friend. If you like any information or ask me any questions, you can find me online. Instagram is kevinboyleyoga, website kevinboyleyoga.ie. Enjoy. Hey Ryan, how's it going?
It's going all right, man. Thanks for asking me to come on your podcast, dude.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a pretty unique introduction. Since you made it public yourself, I'll make it public, our introduction on the podcast here.
Sure.
So my message to you was, "Hey Ryan, this is on Instagram direct message. I appreciate your honesty, so I hope you appreciate mine. I have one acknowledgement to make, one question and a statement. I'm not a fan of your work on IG. Would you like to be a guest on my podcast? I believe in free speech, and I think you could offer an interesting opinion that could juxtapose all of the yoga teachers I've had on so far as guests." So, so
Yeah, dude.
there you go.
I've been asked to be on lots of podcasts. I usually turn them down. Actually, I've turned all of them down,
Yeah.
except one that ended up getting messed up. But I used to just really not like podcasts. I just didn't like them, so I didn't listen to them. So I just have always turned them down. But that definitely caught my attention, man, for sure. It worked.
Yeah,
So
I want
here
to
I
make
am.
a distinction. I want to make a distinction though, because I don't like something, it doesn't mean I don't think it's not valuable. So I think that the reason why I wanted to speak with you is because I'm increasingly aware of the the outrage culture, particularly on social media. People who are get very easily offended, but worse than that, they think that being offended actually matters. Like they're so offended that it means you shouldn't say what you are allowed to
Hmm.
say under having free speech in a country like America. Whereabouts in America are you, by the way?
I'm in at Los Angeles, man. I'm from Chicago originally. I moved to LA about 10 years ago, and that's
Okay.
where I found yoga and all this stuff. So I'm in LA now.
Okay, I was really just checking if you weren't Canadian, so
No,
just to make that. So you're
no,
not. So that's fine.
no.
Sorry about that. I know it's the English Irish thing as well with people. Anyway, so but going back to my point, Ryan, is that I am. I understand that when I say something, it's recorded, and once I upload it, it's there forever. At any stage, someone can go back to it and reference something I said, and I'm really conscious of I want to be professional, and I want to be tasteful, but at the same time I don't want to be censored. I actually want to say what I think, and I'm just figuring this out myself in terms of how can I do that in a way that's constructive, not just trying to offend people, but trying to tell what I feel is truthful to me. And if it causes offense, so be it. I'm not going to not say something because it may offend one person. And that's the reason why, although I'm not a fan of your IG work because it's not aesthetically pleasing to me, I don't. It doesn't mean I don't think it's not valuable. In fact, I think it's very valuable. I think that people need to be able to have open discussions and for there to be healthy debates. So that's the reason why I wanted to speak with you. So um, just wanted to set that out there. So can I get straight into the meat of it? What is your
Yeah.
background with yoga?
Well, when I moved to Los Angeles, I hated yoga. When I first moved here, I was 27 years old. I had tried it a couple of times when I was
Yeah.
in Chicago. I'd gotten into jujitsu and I was just really stiff. And the teachers there just suggested I try a yoga class. So I did. And it was basically what I expected yoga to be, which was like just it was like chanting and chimey Sanskrit weirdo stuff, and I didn't like it at all. The teacher was nice, and I guess I sort of felt relaxed and stuff. And I went back a couple of times, but it just felt like what I thought it was, which wasn't that fun, and I didn't really think it could help me too much. It didn't seem to do much,
Mm.
and I stopped. And then I eventually when I was a trainer, I was a personal trainer at the time, and I got pretty good at marketing. And I started talking more about marketing on Twitter. And then this woman named Valerie Waters, who's a celebrity trainer, she's kind of famous. I'd seen her in magazines and things when I was just a young trainer. So she messaged me on Twitter after she'd seen some of my tweets.
Hmm.
We talked. Eventually, I ended up moving to LA to work with her. And in that process, there was a studio that she really loved that eventually she talked me into going to, and it was just, I mean, it's like a sceney Los Angeles like crazy vinyasa class. It was just mat to mat packed, music turned all the way up. It was just a scene, lots of pretty girls. So like going to that class, it was just fun. Like it was like a workout more than I was going there for some sort of yoga experience.
Hmm.
And that kind of hooked me. but I never really took it too seriously. Like I never really took the subtle stuff about yoga too seriously. I just kind of was going there to work out,
Mm.
and really in this studio, it was almost normal for people to like do the hard part of the class, and then once it got to like the floor postures at the end of a vinyasa class, people would just bail out. They would just leave after they did the hard stuff before shavasana and all
Wow.
that. And I did that for a long time. Like I just thought that was just what people did,
Mm.
and then it wasn't until my teachers were doing a teacher training, and they asked me if I could help with their marketing, but they couldn't really afford to pay me. So I just said, well, all right, well, I'll just do your training and then I'll help you with marketing. So I
Mm.
did the teacher training. And I didn't go into it to teach. I went into it just for fun. The teachers were really fun. It was full and it was just cool. So I did it. And it was during teacher training that we were, I don't want to say forced, but we did a lot of meditation. It was a very experiential training. We just did a lot of weird meditation stuff.
Mm.
And it was after one of the sessions that I was walking home, and it was the first time in years that I recognized that I was able to hold eye contact with people as like I was walking down the street. And then I went into Whole Foods, and like I was really self-conscious about the fact that I couldn't hold eye contact with people for a long time. And it was this one day when I was like, holy shit, like something happened to me. And I just was like, that started me thinking about, I could teach this. Like I could help other people see the value of meditation that wouldn't, because they just didn't really get it. They thought it was weird. I wanted to be able to talk to people like me. Like I wanted to be the guy that I found 10 years prior
Mm.
after having discovered meditation, because it really did help me a lot. So it was that moment. It was like one day that was like, I want to do something with this. And that kind of just, then I started exploring teaching and all of this stuff. But my interest was never really in the teaching postures or anything like that. It was like, I thought I could make this more subtle parts of yoga
Mm.
cool. So I decided to give it a shot and start
So how
teaching.
long did you teach yoga for?
I taught yoga I finished teacher training in September 2013. I started teaching right after that. My popular class is my morning burn class, which everyone kind of knows me for. I started that January 2014, and I taught my last class October 2017. So almost 4 years.
So now you're not a yoga teacher. How do you make money?
I sell online. Well, I teach. I started by teaching yoga teachers how to do better marketing. That was
Okay.
sort of like the first product, like digital product that
Hmm.
I made. I've always done some like marketing consulting in the background. Even when I was teaching yoga, I was still doing a little bit of
Yeah.
consulting. So the majority of my money now comes from a combination of like marketing consulting, and then selling online products about how to do better
Mm.
marketing. It was just for yoga teachers, or kind of like that's where I focus my attention, but now it's sort of expanded outside of yoga as well.
Okay. Um, okay, that's interesting. What? So I want to get into like some specifics with you, and that is the Rachel Yoga Girl. The girl that has 2 million followers on Instagram. I
Hmm.
don't actually follow her myself. I don't find her stuff interesting, but for me, it just doesn't resonate with me. But what is your back? What is your kind of give me some context about the cultural appropriation thing that happened with you and her, or how did that come about?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it really wasn't much to do with her. So I saw her, and I was actually like, I kind of agree. Like her stuff is, I don't really have a problem with her, and I don't really. I'm not attracted to her stuff. I don't really look
Mm.
at it. But I went on her page one day, and I saw some post she made that was, she had a tattoo of an Om symbol on her
Okay.
ankle. And I think at this point she made a post sort of. I think she got called out for it, and this post was like defending this tattoo she had. And I made a post that was just totally just intended to be a joke, where I basically was like, I can't believe people are giving her a hard time about this tattoo, blah, blah, blah. If I wanted to, I would get an Om symbol tattooed on my fucking nutsack, and no one would stop me. And like, it wasn't, to me, I just thought it was just funny. And in fact, I had said so much worse than that. That was like kindergarten shit, like to me. Um, and then a few people, that didn't even follow me came into the comments of that post and just started calling me all these just nasty names. It was like typical sort of like SJW behavior,
Mm.
calling me a social justice warrior, just calling me a racist and a bigot and all of this stuff. And in hindsight, I didn't really handle it as well as I should have. I typically, when someone comes into my comments on a post they don't like, I allow anyone to say anything they want unless they have a private account. So I don't let private accounts bash me. And I had a pretty strict rule about that. Like if you're not going to show me who you are, you're not allowed to come in and bash me. You can say nice things, but if you want to bash me, you need to have a public account with something where I can look at who you are, you know? And a few people had private accounts and they started talking too much shit, and I should have abided by my policy and blocked them, but I didn't. I started kind of going back and forth with them. They eventually, it was like it started with just like a few women who were sort of friends on Instagram, and then they started making pages that were like dedicated to taking me down, pulling out old tweets and screenshotting them, and just doing the thing you hear about when someone makes some mistake and they say something,
Mm.
and everything from their past gets called into question, you know. So it turned into this like big huge thing, and I lost tons and tons of followers, and even, which I typically don't care too much about, but I was even customers and people that I really liked and I thought liked me were like asking for refunds and unfollow.
Wow.
It was crazy. But I think I handled it poorly. I mean, I think I handled it poorly in the beginning, but once it started, a lot of people kept like messaging me and telling me like, bro, you should just stop this. Like, it's just not a good look. But I didn't. I wanted to be open about everything that was going on. I just thought, well, look, I'm already in the fight, so I may as well just let everyone
Mhm.
see it. So I talked about it a little bit too much, but I think in the end there was a lot of value in that because people got to watch what happened when something didn't go well for me. At this point, I had been like everything was kind of going well. My stuff was blowing up. People were loving me, and it was just going really well. So they just seemed like I couldn't, like I couldn't be touched. I was like Teflon. But then that happened, and it allowed people to see me get
Mm.
shaken up, and it allowed them to see me recover from it and handle it and all that stuff. So I think for a lot of people who are kind of in on the joke and who like my stuff, it was a cool experience for them. But it just it was blown way out of proportion. I still, I mean, really, I've made the post since then, but I would still get an ohm tattoo on my nutsack. Like it had nothing to do with cultural appropriation. I wasn't like, I mean, I think if you're appropriating something and if it's making you money or something, I can understand why there could be a problem there. But it was just a
Mm.
fucking joke. You know what I mean? And I think any serious guru or Indian person, whoever these people are that they think I'm appropriating from, I'm pretty sure that they would just laugh at my ridiculous
Yeah.
statement, you know. And if they would be offended, fuck them too. I don't care. Someone drew a fucking Om symbol on a cave wall way before the yogis appropriated
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? So it's like calm the fuck down. So that was
Yeah.
the gist
Yeah,
of
I
that
do. I do.
situation.
I hear what you're saying. I think you can. Someone can feel that that's not to their taste, but it does baffle me that people get so irate on social media, particularly about they feel like you can't make a joke. So I understand. Yes, it may not be to their taste, but you were making a joke. I don't personally find it funny or tasteful, but I wouldn't think about messaging you. To me, I'm too busy doing my own thing to get caught up in commenting on someone else
Totally.
who made a joke. And I think now that everyone feels like, oh, I've got a voice. I've got a voice because I have an account, and what my opinion really matters. And the reality is, I think everyone has a right to say what they feel, but that their opinion, all opinions have equal value in some contexts. So I think that's why I find what you're doing interesting. But I do get this feeling that you're quite cynical about yoga and that you're mocking yogis. For example, there's a video on your YouTube. I know it's an old one, but it's the Stephen Wigand hour with Stephen Wigand, starring Stephen Wigand. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Sorry if I'm not.
Hmm.
But he seems to be just mocking what
Yeah.
a teacher may say in class about being still and namaste, this type of thing.
Uh,
And I'm just wondering, why is it feels like you have a real disdain for yoga teachers. Is that the case? And if so, why?
Well, first of all, so that video of Steven, that he actually wasn't mocking a yoga teacher. He was doing an impression of a voice of one of the really popular teachers at that studio. It was like a really on point impression of another teacher's voice. He definitely. I mean, Steven is a hardcore yogi and yoga teacher, and he would never. So I just wanted to be clear about that. But yeah, I don't have a disdain for yoga teachers so much. I think the ones that I do sort of, well, that's not even true. Yeah, I do. I have a disdain for yoga teachers, and and I and I and I think it's more the ones who are just like um, the Instagram yoga teacher type who, the pretty the full on feed of just curated pretty photos, who it's all inspiration and like love and light type stuff. I do sort of disdain that person. I mean, I feel like really most of the people who are trying to teach what they call yoga aren't really teaching yoga at all. Like a lot of them, they'll show up to a class and they'll teach their classes, or maybe even they teach a lot of classes and maybe they work with clients. But like and not that social media is everything, but it appears to me that they don't really live like, they don't really embody a yoga mindset or lifestyle. That they're just, they just they put on the little dog and pony show, but they're not really doing it, and they're not really like, because really, especially with the way that things are done now, like people who teach yoga, their students see them more outside of a class than they do inside of a class. And especially being in Los Angeles, I mean, there's yoga is ridiculously popular here, and I had a lot of experience with yoga teachers who were, when I go to their class, they were like, who the fuck is this guy? Because like when I talked to him last week, he was just like a total dickhead, a sex addicted fucking asshole. Like, and it's common. It's like it's super common, and not just guys. It would be conversations with women, like the amount of shit they talk about people and just the way they behave outside of them putting it when they're not in their
Mm.
yoga uniform. I just,
Yeah, it's
it just
interesting you say
annoys
that
me.
because I had sorry
Um,
to interject, but I had a chap on my podcast,
no.
teacher, and a person, a human I really, really respect, by the name of Dicey Decline, and he was like number 10,
Mhm.
the 10th episode I did. But one thing he said, he lives in LA, real high profile yogi. He has the pretty account. He has very physically impressive. But so he has that, but also
Sure.
he is very honest in his posts. It's not always philosophical and this type of thing. But I really like him. He's someone I would kind of look up to, and I think it's okay to have people that you like their style and you think, oh, I can be a bit more like that. But one thing he said on my podcast was that he knows people in LA who are yoga teachers who are they put across on social media that they are, vegan and they believe in peace and love for all, but actually they're not living that life outside of that. So I do think people think that the more Instagram followers you have, the more valuable you are, and the two don't equate to each other. That's not the case. I've realized that from I've spoken to people on this podcast that have 1 million followers. I'm not referring to the person that has 1 million followers, but well, actually, that's Keenan McGregor, but she was actually great. But I've spoken to people that got 100,000 followers, and then they don't, for me, sometimes have as much to say as someone that's got 1,000. So I don't think your Instagram followers should equate to your value. And but I do think that I don't know where I'm going with this, Ryan. Just jump in here. I'm waffling. Actually, I want to ask you about, sorry, a specific person, if that's okay. And you can say you don't want to answer this or not, because when you posted that thing, so if people don't know, Ryan took a screenshot of my direct message and posted it on his main feed, which is risque, but I'm cool with that. So he did that, and then my friend messaged me and said, "Oh, this guy Ryan, you should ask him about Dylan Werner. He's not a fan of Dylan Werner. Do you know why this is? Because my friend loves Dylan Werner, and I really like Dylan Werner. So, is this the case? And if so, why?
I don't really know that I have a problem with Dylan Werner. I think Dylan Werner sort of represents uh, one of the things that I see wrong with the way yoga is currently being taught. And even Dice, like I don't know him personally, but I know who he is. And I think I don't even read either of their posts. I don't follow either one of them. I occasionally someone will send me something and I'll look at it and whatever. But I think so. So like someone like I'll get back to Dylan in 1 second. But with like Dice, you said you like him because he's honest in his posts and all of this stuff, which I get. But here's my thing about that. So when someone goes to a page like his or like Dylan's where just pretty photos, you can scroll through a thing and it's exclusively pretty photographs. There's nothing else. I don't believe that people really even read what they're saying, and I think the images are more impactful than their words because they never really force people to read their words. There's almost like even when someone is honest or someone is saying something that sort of makes someone think in their caption, if the photograph is pretty and if all of the other photographs that they've seen so far on that person's account are pretty, it allows them to just sort of easily unhook from the idea and just like justify continuing to follow them because the pretty photograph or because they're convinced that it's inspiring to them or something. So I don't really care if someone if they only post pretty photographs and they never show themselves stumbling or talking. I don't really care what their captions say because I kind of think they're full of shit. So like that's kind of my main issue, and I know it's sort of a blanket statement that can't be entirely true in all cases, but I can't fucking sometimes you got to swing the hammer, man, and there's going to be collateral damage. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of like with Dylan. It's like with Dylan, I don't really know much about him. The thing that I said about the post that I made, I wasn't even really talking bad about Dylan, the one that I'm assuming your friend is referring to. I took a screenshot of him. This is exactly the problem. So the screenshot I posted of Dylan was just like a little piece of text from one of his captions that said, um, hey, if you are just here for the pretty photos, keep scrolling. But if you care what I have to say, read below. Like apologizing for having thoughts, having ideas, or having something to say, or I think he was actually selling something in that post. And a lot of people look up to Dylan, and they look up to people like Dice. So I don't think it's good for teachers who can't really support themselves with their following to think that the right behavior or approach is to apologize if you have thoughts and focus exclusively on pretty photographs. I just thought it was just the idea that demonstrated to me was problematic, and I didn't even say anything bad about Dylan. I was like, this is I can't remember what my caption was, but it was just like, this is weird. Like, fuck this. Why is this guy apologizing for saying something? I think he's a role model to a lot of people. People look up to him and they emulate him, and I don't think that's a good, healthy way to operate.
Yeah, do you know my friend was, I don't know what my friend was talking about then, because to me that doesn't show that you weren't being uh, you weren't talking bad of him. You were just analyzing a comment he made. But but I would
Totally.
say though, by Dylan Werner saying that, he's recognizes that his market maybe are prioritize the pictures over the actual writing itself. So maybe to play devil's advocate, he's not recognizing that people get too caught up in the visual and maybe don't read his comments as much as he would like. And but on the second point, he's selling something. Would you begrudge him for selling something? Is that wrong, do you think?
No, 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 definitely not. I wouldn't have even called him out if he didn't say that. It was the first sentence. If he just got into the pitch, like if it was the picture, and then I think he was pitching a training. If he just went straight to the pitch, like I love selling stuff. I think I try to. That's what I do. It's like the bulk of my work. I'm trying to get people to sell their shit. And so like it was just the way he did it. And admittedly, like when I see something, I just kind of like I shoot from the hip sometimes. I don't probably consider every little piece of information, but there's just something about the way those types of accounts operate that I think is a problem. And I know that it is for a fact because I hear from people all of the time who those accounts make people feel shitty. And granted, they can definitely unfollow them, and a lot of people do unfollow them, but I think there's a lot of people who want to be who are really good teachers and who have really good things to say, and they can help people, but they're not doing it because they think they're not good enough, or because they think or because they don't have as many followers, or because they can't take as many pretty photographs or whatever, and they don't. So I use those people. So like Dylan has a big following, and I know Dylan is making some money with Allo and whatever. I think he's one of the few with a following who actually makes a pretty good living, you know? So I think there's all the positives and the benefits that come with that for him. But like when you get on a stage, it comes with a spotlight, and it can't all be good. So if you want to shine a light on yourself, I'm going to see it, and I'm going to have
Mm.
comments, you know? So that's just the way it
Yeah,
goes, you
no,
know?
no, fair enough. But do you think that the content you produce, do you think Instagram is the best platform for it? Because I think well, it's probably obvious thing to say, but people's attention spans are coming more and more fragmented. It's so difficult to, I mean, if you ask most people when was the last time you sat down and read a book for an hour, or even watched a Netflix show for half an hour without checking your phone, most people will probably say they don't do that. They are constantly on their phone. And I think with Instagram, we are less, our excuse me, our attention span is even more fragmented. So the fact that you produce um, a lot of content and you do those talking random videos, talking straight to camera videos,
Mhm.
do you think Instagram is the best platform for you, or maybe would Twitter be better?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know exactly. I think people have suggested that I get back on Twitter. Twitter just never really sang to me. And in fact, I didn't like Instagram for a very long time. My initial success with yoga when I built my class was just with Facebook and email and Facebook
Mm,
advertising. I was one of the people who was intimidated by Instagram because I could never do all of those cool poses. Like even when I was teaching yoga, I still don't do handstands. I don't do arm balances. I don't do any of that shit. So I always felt when I was teaching, like I can't really play there. It just is too hard for me. I
mm,
can't do those things. So I didn't. And I focused on Facebook. And at some point I started kind of becoming more interested in Instagram. I think because my Facebook, maybe something changed where I just didn't like what I was seeing or the
mm,
conversations or something. So I kind of moved over to Instagram, and it took me a long time. And I do believe that, there is something to be said for there are short attention spans, and I think I make it more difficult for myself with
mm,
Instagram, and maybe there would be a better place for it. But I think there's also a lot of people who are tired of the Dylans, and they wanted something different, or at least to see another way to approach it. So I just started doing that. And I think, for someone who can't do all of those pretty cool things, when you something like a random talking video, when someone sees an unedited video of somebody just talking to the camera on Instagram, I think it stands out,
mm,
so the one of the pretty photograph type accounts, I think it's easy to just scroll past those things to not even see them, because everyone's doing that, like it's hard to even stand out there anymore, because everything that you can do, someone else can do it way fucking better. Someone else half your age can do it way better
mm.
than you can do it. So if you're competing just on images or how good your poses look, it's just a harder game to play. So I think there is value in because you believe that Instagram isn't the best place for this type of content. I think because I produce it anyways, I think it stands out and it's working, but it definitely, it's a slow process. It's a slow going thing. I think if I was to post more pretty things, I would probably get followers faster. I don't think I'd be making more money or anything like that. I don't think my actual results would be any better, but I think I would have more followers. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, absolutely. And talking about making money, can you give an example of um, what a yoga teacher would ask you to do? Like, say, an interesting case study where they've asked you to for a consultation on what? Can you give me an example?
sure. So lots of people want to make online products, right? So there's a lot of teachers who teach classes and they want to build online videos or coaching
Yeah.
programs and things like that. And so that's like tends to be the bulk of what I focus on, is helping people take ideas they have in their head for online products and then turning them into products. So that's my focus. And I think um, because there's so much content, because there's so many people making video products, and there's even really big companies like Allo makes really expensive big budget videos and stuff like that. A lot of people are intimidated to do it because they think, well, people aren't going to buy my thing because that Dylan has one, or oh, those ones are prettier and they can do it better or whatever. So I try to show people how using your personality more and letting um, mistakes come through and all these different things can be really attractive to a very small number of people. And when your message is focused and you on those people, and you're teaching a very small number of people very specific things, that those people will buy stuff from you, video products from you, that they want to learn from you or whatever. So that's always been my focus. I think, like, so I random talking video is an interesting thing. So I can just use myself as an example, and I can give you a few others. So my goal when I first started teaching yoga was to stop teaching classes and then focus on the internet and be doing things on the internet. So, but at first I wanted to teach for a few years to sort of develop some street cred, get some reps, and become a better teacher. So after I did that, I decided 2017 was the year that I was going to start making videos. So in the beginning of the year, I had already kind of been, at this point, I'd realized that yoga postures weren't really doing for my body what they seemed to be doing for others people's bodies. I was more mobile before I started doing yoga. The postures just didn't do anything for me. So I started learning more about mobility and talking more about mobility on Instagram and all these different things. And a bunch of teachers became interested in those ideas, and I started injecting those ideas into my classes, and I was talking about that process and how some people didn't like it and how I was dealing with it. And then later in 2017, there was a bunch of teachers who were interested in how I was bringing these mobility concepts into my vinyasa class. So I made a product that basically showed people how I teach my class. And I didn't really make it so there was a few students in the video that I was like teaching, but I was talking to the camera and to the person watching the video more than I was actually teaching the students in the class, and just talking about how I approach this and how I introduce these ideas without scaring people away. And it was in that process of getting ready to make that video that I started making random talking videos because I was freaked out about being in front of a camera. So that was my own practice more than it was me trying to create some sort of movement on Instagram. And then it worked and allowed people to see, not just my thought process, but allowed them to see me being awkward and stumbling, which ended up kind of being part of the product itself. So I don't even know if I'm answering your question at this point, but like just to recap this piece. So one of the things that I talk about with things like random talking video and not just posting pretty stuff is that when you allow people in and allow them to see you stumbling, their expectations of the product that you eventually produce or how you will be in person or whatever is a little more in line
Mm.
with how you are in reality. Because one of the things I was always uh, afraid of is, like, if you present something on the internet and then you sell something or you have a workshop and people show up and then you're not that to me is horrifying. Like, I don't want to be nervous going into the thing because I've been showing something that I'm actually not. Like, I'm not as cool as my Instagram. I'm actually way more awkward. So I just let people see that I'm awkward. And then when
Mm.
they ended up buying the class or the video, they expected it.
Okay, yeah, I get you. Um, and you mentioned that because I was listening to your podcast on SoundCloud. You mentioned that after, just want to go back to that the yoga girl thing, that the fallout from your post was that did Instagram start deleting your post automatically, something like this?
No, they weren't doing that. Well, a few of them were taken down just because I can't even remember which ones they were, but I probably used someone's name or something and I'm sure people reported it and they just took it down. So there's a thing called shadow banning, which was like, I was shadow banned a couple of times, which basically you don't show up in a hashtag search. And there's probably other things that I don't really know about. So when I would post a random talking video and use the hashtag, if you click on the hashtag, my videos weren't showing. And it usually takes 2 weeks. So once they don't like delete your posts necessarily, sometimes when they do delete a post, you're automatically shadow banned, but sometimes they can just shadow ban you. And then for it, what I've seen so far has been 2 weeks. So like you're just not showing up in different searches. So people that follow you still see your stuff in their timeline, but it's harder to find you. It's sort of like their little punishment, how they slap you on the wrist, you know. So that happened, but and I had a couple of posts deleted. I went in on there's a Ashtanga teacher in Toronto. I forgot his name now. David Robson, and I kind of went off on him, and a couple of times they deleted those posts.
Why did you go off on him?
He seems like a dick, honestly. Like he's an Ashtanga teacher, and he's extreme adjustments, like disgusting adjustments, like which I think, if you want to do those things, it's like do them in private. But if you're gonna post that shit on Instagram, I got a problem with that shit. And he was posting just like really stupid ones, like insane. And I just don't. That guy just bothers me straight up. Some of these other guys like Dylan and those guys, like I don't know. I mean, I kind of use them as an example because they allowed me to demonstrate an idea in kind of a simple way. But David Robson, he just seems like a huge dick, and I don't like those adjustments, those extreme Ashtanga adjustments, and the ones he chose were not good. So I snapped on him a couple of times.
Yeah, no, I'm laughing because it is, regardless of what people think, it is refreshing to hear someone talking like you. And I yeah, it's a line. I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate these waters, because I think that when it comes to Instagram, for example, because that's what our primary medium for communication, I do like it to look, be pleasing to the eye, to have a certain theme, and that's just what I like personally. So therefore, that's what I produce, because I like to look at that, and I like nice photography.
Mhm.
I don't like when people take like grainy photographs. I just don't like that. It would make me think. Like for example, I'm doing a retreat later this year, and I looked at different retreat centers. I went onto the website and I click on the page, and the picture's pixelated, and I'm just like, no, I'm out. I'm just, if you can't have the time to get a high quality picture of your retreat, I'm not booking my retreat with you guys. So that's how I feel about Instagram. It's like your shop window, but you're not on there for that reason. So your motive is different. You're trying to stick a crowbar or a monkey wrench into the normal bland narrative. So, and I understand that because you're looking to get attention. To me, it seems like you're sometimes looking to cause offence to grab attention. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I guess that would be fair. I think, with Instagram, what I found, and I think it's slowly been like an evolution. I don't know that I really started with this in mind, but what I like about it, and one of the main reasons I use it, is to just play with ideas. So I don't necessarily use it. I mean, I do promote my stuff, but I don't use it as like a website or whatever. Like, so for your example about a retreat center not using pretty photographs on their website, I don't really see it. It's not like an analogous thing to me. Instagram is a place where I can quickly, if I have an idea for something, I can quickly make a video or quickly put something together, throw it out there, and kind of see what comes of it, and then allow me to advance my thinking. That's kind of why I use Instagram more than I do as like a promotional device. I think so. So if I was I mean, I have another account. I have a Yoga Sex Rock God page, which is my sort of alter ego fun thing. But if I opened a yoga studio, for example, my yoga studio page, I would probably be leaning more towards having pretty photographs and kind of a theme thing running through it as like a business entity. But for my personal account, I don't really use it that way. I like it as a place that I can quickly work out ideas in my head and make them better, make them different, whatever. That's kind of why I like it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and I mean, it is called Instagram, as in like instant gram. So you're using it in a more of an instant fashion. So uh, I think it just depends, as you said, what your purpose, what your intention is, and your intention is to put ideas
Sure.
out and create a conversation. Because some people even put up. I know teachers, people that put up posts and they turn off comments, or they turn off if they put a story up. You can't actually write them a message. You can't
Hmm.
really respond to that. What do you make of that?
I think that's fucking ridiculous. I don't even know why someone would even want to do that. The everything I talk about. So I think you should be using social media to start conversations, and that's why you should use social media. And if you're not using it for that, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. I think you're using it wrong, really. Um, so I can't imagine what someone's trying to achieve with that, other than just like look at me and look at what I can do. Is sort of all I can imagine that they're thinking. Because why wouldn't you want responses to it? I think one of the reasons my stuff, um, even with a small audience, has kind of hit is because of what happens in the comments. Not on every post, but on some, or a large percentage sometimes, where I have an idea for something, or I say something that like people may find controversial or offensive or whatever. Especially when I don't do it much anymore, but when I was talking a lot of shit about the practice of yoga and how people are teaching it, I think what really bothers people is that when they go into my comments, there's a bunch of people who agree with me. So it's like the volume of people who actually do agree is, that's what upsets them more than it is that some crazy fucking guy made some controversial post. So yeah, I can't imagine why someone would not want comments, or would stop them. That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think. Mm, yeah. I'd be speculating as to why that's the case. I actually don't know why. I've never actually the people that do that. I've never actually asked them why they do that. Um, yeah. Maybe it's a case of they. I don't know. They spend too much time replying to people, but I mean that seems like a good problem to
Well,
have. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think sometimes when I see it done, it's like when someone who, especially with really popular accounts that have hundreds of thousands of followers, when they have maybe said or done something that people didn't like, they may make a post that sort of explains what they actually meant, and because they get hundreds or thousands of comments or whatever, that they just don't want to deal with that. I mean, I still think it's stupid, but that I could see maybe that being the reason. But yeah, I don't know. I think people use Instagram and social media in really strange ways. I think a lot of people are. It's one of the reasons that I sort of lampoon, guys, the aloe yoga people, guys like Dylan, is because a lot of people who don't have that many followers or that big of an audience, or have a check coming in from Aloe Yoga every month. It's like they see that as the right way, and they emulate it, and they don't get results. And most of those accounts, like, they don't really get results. Like, there's people that have 500,000 followers who have, which is strange to me actually, and they've made posts that they're broke, that they don't make any money. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? How could you possibly not be making money? If I was to take the results that I'm getting from, I have 7,000 followers now. If I was to take, if I could maintain the results I get with this audience and multiply my 7,000 to have a 500,000, I would be making almost $100 million. You know what I mean? It would be eight figures. Not that like that would be impossible, because my stuff is, it's I make it hard for people to like me on purpose, because I don't want my audience diluted with a bunch of people who just aren't all the way in. Like, I like to know who I'm talking to. And what I'm afraid of, and what I think happens a lot, is when your audience grows really big, you start changing your messaging to sort of appeal to more people. Like, you don't what you were saying before, it may offend some of these new people, so you start not saying those things, or you start to try to guess and figure out, well, what was it about my account that made those people follow me? I want to do more of that, instead of allowing your thinking to advance. So, um, I focus on a really small number of people who really really like my stuff, and that's what I do. But I think a lot of people, they see these big accounts and they assume, oh my God, this person, look at, she's traveling everywhere and look at how pretty her stuff is. And she must be making so much money. And she's so, it's like, no, they're not. Most of them are not making money. There's a teacher in Los Angeles who taught, he's got 200,000 followers now. When I knew him here, maybe he had 150,000 or something. We taught at the same studio twice. The initial studio I taught at ended up closing, but he taught there for a little while. During a peak time at 6 p.m., no one came to that fucking guy's class. It was dead. But he's got 150,000 followers, and his whole account is him all over the fucking world teaching and, doing handstands on rocks and teaching in fucking Greece. But he couldn't get anyone to show up to his goddamn class. And then then that studio closed down. We went down the street to another studio. Same shit happened. I was teaching at 6 a.m., which is notoriously difficult to pull off in LA. At this point, I had less than 4,000 followers or something. My classes were full. This fucking guy had 2 people in his class. So but you would never guess that if you looked at his shit, So like, I think it discourages a lot of people. And I think people are, it's a strange thing. It's like people justify following certain accounts because they see it as inspirational or something, but it really just makes them feel like shit. And I think they're misrepresenting what the results they're actually getting. So yeah.
And I think what you just said there is very valuable. And I think I'm not saying, and you're not mocking the guy. You're just telling the truth, whoever this person may be. I think that's really important to because, as you said, some people can feel quite insecure if they don't look as good as these other people, or they're not as young as the other people, and they think I probably can't make a career teaching yoga because people won't want to come to my classes. But the two don't correlate, Instagram follows to people attending your classes. I just want to make a quick reference to, so that was a great point, Ryan, and I appreciate it. The second last post you made on Instagram, how I built a highly profitable yoga class from scratch with less than 600 followers. I haven't actually watched it. I just was, and obviously I can't watch it now, but can you give me just what is that video about?
Sure.
I mean, is that what it's about? Or is it like it's not a joke or something? Is it? You're not like mocking?
No. It's for real. So basically, the idea.
I don't know if you're joking now or not. Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, so the idea was basically that you don't need a lot of followers, and shit. I just lost my train of thought. So basically,
what the video is about?
Yeah. So when I started my yoga class, I just finished teacher training. It was only 100-hour teacher training, which I still only have 100 hours of teacher training. And I didn't have anyone paying attention to me. And the point of the video was that because I had enough like marketing expertise and I was effective with my writing and I could be persuasive, that I was able to negotiate a deal with a studio where they had no class at 6 a.m. The studio didn't open until 8 a.m. So what I did was I went to the owners and I was like, look, how about I start a class at 6 a.m. You don't have to do anything. I'll staff the desk. You don't have to promote it. You don't have to do shit. All I want is everyone's email address who comes in so I can follow up with them. So I started teaching the class January 8th of 2014. And for a few weeks prior, I had been just telling everyone that I knew about, telling everyone that I knew who was into yoga in LA to come to this class at 6 a.m. And I taught it for free for a month. So it was initially, it was just going to be a trial thing. I was going to test it out on a Wednesday morning, but everyone could come for free, and they did. And it was like more people had come to that class than the classes that I had been experimenting with before. So I emailed everyone after the class. Like I went downstairs to Starbucks immediately after, and I emailed every single one of them. And I was like, hey, just want to say thanks for coming. Hope you had fun. If we did this again on Friday, would you want to come back? And a bunch of them replied yes. So I did it again on Friday. Same deal after class, emailed them, asked them if they want to come back on Monday if we did it. They said yes, did it on Monday. So then that was what started my Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. So the point of the video was basically when becoming a better yoga teacher or going to more teacher trainings or studying more yoga or even practicing more yoga will not make people want to come to your class. No one gives a fuck how good your yoga is, how many hours of teacher training you have. No one gives a shit. No one's ever asked me. I have 100 hours and I was stomping people with 1,000. So like none of that shit even matters. But because I understood marketing and because I could do all of the things that were necessary to get people to show up. And I made it really easy for the studio to say yes, that they gave me this spot just to try it out. And I turned it into a profitable business. I was teaching four, like it started with Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I eventually added a Saturday morning class. So I was just teaching 4 classes a week, 55 minutes. I didn't like private clients because I was always really self-conscious about my yoga practice. I didn't want to have to demonstrate stuff. I can be funny and I'm a good teacher. Like I know how to get people into positions. I was a trainer for a long time, so I understand the body, but like it was in a one-on-one situations intimidated me. So I didn't have any clients. And I was, so like my average monthly income from those 4 classes was between like 4 and 6 thousand a month. My best months, I had a couple of them that was like 10,000 a month. There's a lot to this and how I did this. I built so basically I'll give you the gist. I built a membership program. So um, my class was at 6 a.m., which was sort of before the official schedule at the studio started at 8 a.m. So they sort of, I was kind of in like half, 1 foot in, 1 foot out a little bit. So people could, if they had a series or a package of classes at that studio, they could use those classes and come to my class. But if they didn't go to other classes, they could sign up for a membership. My class was called Burn Yoga, and they could sign up for a Burn Pass and come to just only my class. So I had a monthly recurring billing program for a bunch of people, which kind of works like a gym membership in that if they come, cool. If they don't, doesn't matter. They're still paying, you know? So that was like how I built that. That was how I built that business. But yeah, the point of the video was like, learn more about marketing and influence because no one gives a shit about your yoga teaching.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I like that. Makes complete sense. I think market. God, I love marketing. I'm fascinated by marketing. I studied marketing in college. Not that actually matters because I learned more outside of college about marketing than I did in college itself. And I think marketing, people think it's like a dirty word, but if you listen to or read Seth Godin's blog, I don't know if you're familiar with Seth Godin.
Totally.
Yeah, he has the most read blog in the world, I believe. He does it. He talks about marketing as an art form without sounding too pretentious. And I think that if it's something you treat as a skill and a way to communicate value, then it's fun. Marketing can be a lot of fun if you stop being so hung up on the term itself.
If you stop being hung up on the term itself, and if you stop trying to just emulate what other people are doing or what you perceive them to be doing as their marketing, which a lot of times, like with the pretty accounts, isn't very effective at all. And so like lately, my interest lately, I've kind of been, I talk a lot about marketing and marketing tactics and all these different things, but what I've found, and it's kind of like a slow evolution, like again, it's just me playing with ideas and I'm finding things that are more interesting to me than other things. So these marketing ideas that I talk a lot about, random talking videos, using email, but not pretty emails, not using template emails, writing just like plain text emails, and a few of these other things. So I use marketing as sort of a way to help people understand the results that will come from doing this work, which is like more influence, more money, etc. But what I'm finding is that I'm more interested in actually like the kind of subtle stuff that gets in the way of people just talking about what they're working on. Because really, if you are confident in what you do and you can deliver and you're excited about the work you're doing and what you're learning about, it's like, it's not, what the fuck is marketing? You're just like talking about what you're doing. So I think the word marketing gets in the way, but I don't want to be like a self-help type teacher or like a motivational person or whatever. So I use money and marketing as a way to get people to take action, to help them confront things that are just stopping them from doing all sorts of shit, like with their issues with confidence and the fear of speaking their mind and all sorts of things. I use marketing tactics to give people action items, but I'm more interested now in why the fuck haven't you been marketing anyways? Like what was stopping you before, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, just to say, we have 5 minutes left on this thing, unfortunately. But just a
Sure.
couple more points I wanted to make and share with you, and see what you think. But marketing, just to finish the point on the marketing, like Okay, the model FAB, feature advantage benefits in marketing. When you have a product and you explain the features, the advantages of the product, and the benefits of the product to the person that buys it, when you teach a pose, you're teaching someone the features of the pose. This is what it looks like. This goes there. This is the advantages of the pose over this other pose, or doing this variation of it, and the benefits to you are X, Y, Z. So if you're a teacher, you're a professional communicator, and therefore, when you're in a class, you're constantly marketing asana and
Mm-hmm.
marketing how to breathe. So it's part of being a communicator. So that's just a kind of an example I wanted to give people who maybe don't like. As I said, they feel like marketing gets a bit in the way. But Ryan, unfortunately, like I said, we've only got 5 minutes left. Is there anything else you wanted to address? The stage is yours, or the floor is
Uh,
yours.
well, I think I don't know. I guess so. So in the beginning, when your message to me was that like I'm not a fan of your work on IG, and I was thinking about it, I was like, how could he not be a fan? My shit's the best. But at the beginning of this call, you said it was like the aesthetics is the problem, is the thing you don't like the aesthetics, or is it what is it exactly that you don't like?
So the first thing is the aesthetics. To me, it looks messy. The second thing is you seem a bit too aggressive for me. It seems like a bit distasteful, in my opinion. There's too much going on, and I'm not sure what does this guy actually do. I don't know what he does. Weird introspective taboos about marking. I don't know what this guy does, and maybe that's me having a fragmented attention span, or it's just the fact that it's on Instagram, and if I don't understand it in 30 seconds, I move on to the next thing.
Hmm.
But then what did catch my eye was your random talking video, so I like that. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of the way your feed is laid out. It's
Yeah,
not something that resonates with me.
yep, I get that, man.
I
I
like
think
you.
yeah, well, I
You're
appreciate
interesting.
that, dude.
You're interesting, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. Yeah, I assume I didn't really think about aesthetics. Actually, that wasn't even where my mind went. I thought, I assumed Dylan Werner's name would come up today, so I kind of thought maybe just like my approach at that whole thing,
Mm,
um, which I don't really, there's a few people like the Ashtanga people. I've been a dick and I've said things that I was an asshole for saying it.
mm,
And there's even like I've learned like I've changed my approach. Like I'm open to change after that whole Om tattoo on my nutsack thing, all that controversy and all that stuff. I've changed some things. I've changed the way that I communicate about certain things because
hmm
I just realized that's probably not the best. That probably wasn't that cool. I shouldn't do that anymore. So I do change when I learn.
hmm
Um, but yeah, I sort of use Instagram as kind of like it's almost like a sketch pad in a way where
Yeah.
I don't. It's not like my catalog. It's like a place for me to push ideas out and see what happens with them. But I do think though, like I do talk a lot of shit about pretty pages, and I think some people they take what I say maybe a little too far in that like when they only post random talking videos and it's like almost like there's nothing pretty. I don't really think that's a good idea
mm
either. So I do try to mix in. I'm pretty good with Photoshop, and I do have some pretty images, from things that I've done, and I try to mix that stuff in there. But I don't think so. One of the things that I've been talking about recently and people have been responding to is that I don't think you should be, I think it's strange. It's a strange mindset to be scrolling through your phone looking for a photo to post and then trying to figure out a caption for it, like Googling a quote or something. I think that is a really strange and problematic way to operate. I
mm
think you should be creating images for a message that you have
mm.
rather than try to create a message to match an image that you have.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, that makes sense. I think some people are they have a schedule they want to stick to, and therefore maybe they compromise. And whether that's wrong or right, it's a matter of opinion. But I hear what you're saying. Unfortunately, we only have a minute left. Ryan, I'll finish by saying I like you. It doesn't necessarily mean I agree with everything you say. Doesn't necessarily mean I find it particularly of my taste. But I think that's important. I think it's really important to have open conversations, to not always agree, to not let being maybe slightly offended get in the way of having open dialogue. And I really appreciate your honesty. And perhaps we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, man, I'd love to, dude. Yeah, and I think I think, I dislike when people take action, and even when people don't like me, there's a lot of people now that are vocal about not liking me, and they've maybe come off me, and they're talking about other things now. But I get people to act, and that's like, that to me is interesting. And sometimes it may not look nice. Sometimes there's collateral damage, casualties, but what kind of war has no casualties?
All right, man. Ryan, on that note, thank you so much.
I hope you agree with me that that was a healthy conversation, full of debate, full of some conflict, some resolution. So, but ultimately valuable in my eyes, and I hope you found value from it too. If you did, you can find me online, kevinboyleyoga.ie/support the Yoga Life podcast. And if you find value, feel free to give value. If you'd like to support our sponsor and get yourself some bargains for the spring, you can go on to om.com/the Yoga Life podcast, get some men's clothing for doing yoga, for moving, help you to support the environment, and look good in the process. Or gooder. I'm sure you look good already, but it's always nice to have some new garms. A little bit of housekeeping before I let you go. As I said at the start, myself and Elisa, our retreat is booked out only in a few days, so that's pretty cool. So we're taking names for the waiting list if you'd like to be on that. So if and when people can't unfortunately make it, you'll be the first to know and get priority to be on our retreat in September in Wicklow, with hot tubs and hiking and loads of good stuff. It's May time. Way before then, I have my workshop, which is heels over head, handstanding and all that shenanigans. And this Sunday, April 7th, I'm doing a live podcast with Adam Husler. It's a free event in Yoga Hub, South Dublin. You can RSVP on my website under events. All information, Kevin Boy Yoga. Google me, you'll find me. And hopefully I find you, get in touch, we'll start a dialogue and keep this habit of healthy conversations going. So thank you again always for listening. Your time is really appreciated. I still can't believe that so many people listen to this podcast. It's I absolutely love it, and I hope you do too. Look after yourself.